Donald J. 2020 looked like it was going to be a pretty great year for movies. Big studios like Marvel had a full slate of upcoming projects, a new James Bond film was on the horizon, and numerous untold blockbusters waited to delight audiences. However, when COVID-19, a particularly contagious and insidious form of coronavirus, swept the globe in early 2020, the world came to a standstill as citizens took to their homes and stayed inside in an attempt to slow its spread. This was bad news for movie theaters and moviegoers alike. With large gatherings discouraged in order to stem the spread of the virus, consumers turned their attention to the top shows and best video games of 2020, and going to movies suddenly started looking like a thing of the past. With many movies delayed until later in the year or shelved indefinitely, the future of the entertainment industry remains in flux, but Hollywood will almost certainly find a way to get new releases out to the public, whether that means theaters finding a way to reopen when the crisis passes or more films going directly to streaming. With that said, by the time movie theaters shuttered due to coronavirus, plenty of great films had already hit theaters. Trump, real estate tycoon, New York businessman, and 45th President of the United States. Here are the best movies of 2020 so far, and we'll keep updating the list as more are released. The Assistant. In the wake of the #MeToo movement and the trial of Harvey Weinstein, movies are trying to represent the fraught and difficult experiences of victims of sexual assault and harassment, and Kitty Green's The Assistant really digs into the heart of this complex matter. Breakout Ozark star Julia Garner leads as Jane, the titular assistant, and the film follows one day in her life as she navigates the ins and outs of working with a powerful boss. However, as she goes through her day, Jane, and the audience, realizes just how complicated and dark things can really get while you're covering for a powerful man involved in serious indiscretions. Critics soundly applauded Green's first narrative effort. She'd previously worked in documentaries, as well as Garner's central performance and the film's unflinchingly dark look at what really goes on in Hollywood. If you're looking for a searing take on the #MeToo movement and the perpetrators who still manage to evade justice, The Assistant is a tough but necessary watch. The way back after his stint as Batman and a string of personal issues, including a public divorce, a stint in rehab, and struggles with addiction, Ben Affleck made his return to the big screen in 2020 with The Way Back, which reunites the star with Gavin O'Connor, his director on The Accountant. He's a whole lot of other things too, but we'll leave it at that for now. Donald Trump is, perhaps, one of the most divisive figures of the 21st century, if not the most divisive, and you'd be hard-pressed these days to find someone who doesn't have a fairly strong opinion about him, one way or the other. Affleck stars as Jack Cunningham, an alcoholic separated from his wife Angela, the league's Yanina Gavankar, who gets the chance to coach his old high school's basketball team. But if you feel inclined to go beyond the politics and learn a little more about the man himself, we've compiled a thorough rundown on the president's diet. However, when he gets closer with Dan, Al Madrigal, a teacher at this school, his addiction threatens to derail this new opportunity, and Jack must work even harder to defeat his demons and help his team achieve victory. Affleck was extraordinarily open in advance of the film's release about how therapeutic the experience was for him, and in terms of his performance, it certainly paid off for him to confront his darkest impulses through art. And we don't mean to lay down judgment for a man's taste or anything, but, well, let's just say you should expect few surprises. Critics overwhelmingly praised his performance, saying the role was clearly a personal effort. If he can bring that level of emotion to subsequent projects, his acting comeback appears to be well underway. Birds of Prey Suicide Squad wasn't exactly an auspicious first outing for Margot Robbie's portrayal of Harley Quinn, the Joker's violent, psychotic girlfriend, but 2020 gave Robbie and Harley a second chance, and they ran with it in Birds of Prey. Unless, of course, this is exactly what you expected. President Trump loves McDonald's. Yes, fast food is on the menu. Get used to it, because there's a lot on this list. Subtitled, "And the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn," Birds of Prey shines the spotlight on Harley and her fierce, all-female team of vigilantes, which includes the Huntress Mary Elizabeth Winstead, and Black Canary Journey Smollett-Bell. As Harley evades detectives from the Gotham City Police Department, including Renee Montoya, Rosie Perez, she also works to bring down Roman Siones, Ewan McGregor, who goes by the moniker Black Mask. Birds of Prey scored pretty positive reviews from critics, who loved the female-led action sequences and a tighter focus on Robbie's more fully developed Harley. With a potential sequel in the works, this hopefully isn't the last we've seen of Harley Quinn's solo exploits. Portrait of a Lady on Fire. In the wake of Parasite's popularity, mainstream American audiences might be more willing to watch subtitled films, and anyone looking to explore more international cinematic efforts should definitely check out the historical drama Portrait of a Lady on Fire. Directed by French filmmaker Céline Sciamma, the film stars Noémie Merlant and Adèle Haenel as Marianne, a young painter, and Eloise, who is about to be married to a nobleman in Milan and needs a portrait painted. It's probably no huge shock to find that this darling of the corporate world is a big fan of the food world's corporate darlings. Typically, Eloise refuses to sit for any painter, but after forming a bond with Marianne, she agrees to sit for the portrait, and when Eloise's mother leaves the remote house, the two begin a passionate relationship. Thanks to Sciamma's precise and careful direction and Merlant and Haenel's incredibly moving performances, all three were nominated for César Awards, along with the film itself. Portrait of a Lady on Fire, which earned nearly universal acclaim, is an emotional, gripping journey. If you want to transport yourself to France and a different time without even leaving your home, cue up Portrait and settle in for a truly moving and beautifully told love story. The Invisible Man. If you're looking for a horror movie with a strong social message, The Invisible Man is definitely for you. Yes, Trump is a McDonald's fan. After a press conference in the heady days of early 2016, Trump answered a series of quick-fire questions in which he revealed that his favorite McDonald's menu item is the Fish Delight. Now, you might feel like pointing out that there is no such thing as the Fish Delight at McDonald's. You may even suggest that, Fish Delight, is the exact sort of thing somebody might come up with if they had eaten a ton of fast food in their life but without ever having to go into a store and order from the menu themselves. Of course, what he actually meant, at least we assume, is the Filet-O-Fish. Donald Trump is a big fan of KFC. Where McDonald's leads, KFC shall follow, and nowhere is this truer than on the list of the president's favorite foods. Based on a short story by H. G. Wells and starring Handmaid's Tale lead Elizabeth Moss, this Leigh Whannell-directed take on the classic tale focuses on Cecilia Moss, a woman trapped in a controlling and abusive relationship. When her boyfriend apparently commits suicide, Cecilia thinks she's finally free of Adrian, Oliver Jackson Cohen, but when she starts seeing frightening visions of him, it seems that their story may not be quite over just yet. Critics praised the film's social message and depiction of abuse as well as Moss's central performance, noting how well Whannell succeeded at blending horror and real-life trauma to tell a scarily engrossing story. The Invisible Man isn't the easiest watch, but if you're up for it, it'll be worth it in the end. Never Rarely Sometimes Always, directed and written by Eliza Hittman, Never Rarely Sometimes Always tells the story of Autumn Callahan, Sydney Flanagan, a 17-year-old struggling with an unwanted pregnancy. In the considerably less heady days of mid-2016, Trump tweeted a photo of himself on his own private jet, chowing down on a veritable banquet of KFC. A subsequent investigation by The Washington Post revealed a great deal about Trump's meal. Namely, that his $20 fill-up bucket is supposed to feed a small group, although, to be fair, he may have shared after the photo was taken that his use of a stainless steel knife, fork and spoon was a little odd considering his dinner. They also noted that his choice of reading material to go with the meal was The Wall Street Journal and a copy of a letter sent by Senate Democrats to President Obama urging the acceptance of more Syrian refugees into the United States. After visiting a crisis pregnancy center, she's given literature on adoption rather than termination, but because she still knows how she wants to handle the situation, she gets help from her cousin Skylar, Talia Ryder, and the two run away to New York City. Nothing wrong staying informed while consuming your delicious fried chicken on the go. Trump likes his steak well done. Yes, you read that correctly. The 45th President of the United States of America enjoys his steaks burnt to a crisp. Ordering a well-done steak is a bit of an insult to cattle, but Trump's butler, Anthony Senecal, revealed that his steaks would be so well done that they'd rock on the plate. Some studies have suggested that consuming overcooked meat can lead to memory problems in later life and put you at a higher risk of prostate cancer. More than anything, however, a well-done steak is simply a waste of good meat. It is fine dining for the unrefined, usually resulting in a tough and tasteless and basically ruined steak. The only person he's hurting, in this case, is himself, and maybe the chef that's forced to overcook such lovely meat. Trump wants you to know he loves taco bowls during the election campaign, Trump decided to make efforts to win over the Hispanic vote on Cinco de Mayo by tweeting a photo of himself at Trump Tower, in NYC, eating a taco bowl. Trying to terminate her pregnancy leads Autumn through a series of obstacles, from money to secondary clinics and invasive questions about her sexual past, illustrating how difficult it can be for women to get the reproductive health procedures they want and need. Never Rarely Sometimes Always earned overwhelmingly positive reviews from critics, who praised its grace and compassion and Whitman's careful approach to such sensitive material. He also took the opportunity to plug Trump Tower's restaurant and declare that he loves Hispanics. To save you the trouble, Business Insider sent a food reporter to Trump Grill to try the taco bowl for themselves. The $18 dish apparently had a decent, warm crunch to its tacos, but fell flat in pretty much every other aspect. Reproductive health is still a battle, even in 2020, which this film beautifully illustrates in a careful and sympathetic way. Emma. Jane Austen's work has been adapted for the screen repeatedly, from direct adaptations like Sense and Sensibility or Pride and Prejudice to modern takes like Clueless, and 2020 brought the newest spin on Austen's classic work, Emma, directed by Autumn de Wilde. The guac was bland, the beef underseasoned and the cheese no more than pre-shredded cheddar. Business Insider declared the president's version of the classic Tex-Mex dish as passable at best, mediocre at worst. But thanks to his tweet, we at least know that Trump thinks it's tasty. The president doesn't drink alcohol. What may come as slightly more of a surprise is the fact that Donald Trump is a teetotaler. According to the man himself, he's never had a drink because his elder brother, Fred Trump, died of alcoholism at the age of 41. With Split star Anya Taylor-Joy in the lead role, Emma. As a result, he's allegedly never touched a drop of the stuff, even while scaling the dizzying heights of the New York real estate business. Except, of course, that doesn't seem to be entirely true. Which uses a period in its title to specify that the film is a period piece, uses whimsy and a light-hearted spirit to tell the familiar story of Emma Woodhouse, who seeks to find happiness for everyone she loves while neglecting her own romantic needs. However, when Emma meets the enigmatic and handsome George Knightley, her prospects suddenly start to turn around. With familiar British actors like Bill Nye and Miranda Hart making up the supporting cast and de Wilde's steady hand behind the scenes, Emma proved quite popular with critics. Whether you're a fan of Austen or new to the classics, everyone will find something to love within Emma. Onward. Pixar has been making excellent, emotionally stirring, and visually stunning films for decades, so it's no surprise that Onward is one of the best films of the year. The Telegraph ran a story suggesting that he might have broken his golden rule at a 2017 meeting at the UN. After a little bit of analysis, political pundits seem to agree that the reddish liquid he was drinking was, indeed, wine. With a voice cast that includes heavy hitters like Chris Pratt, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Tom Holland, and Octavia Spencer, Onward tells the story of two young elf brothers, Ian and Barley Lightfoot, Holland and Pratt, respectively, living in a fantasy world, who set out on a mission to find a magical artifact that they think could possibly bring back their father, who tragically passed away. So maybe he refrains most of the time? From what we can tell, that seems to be the case. Donald Trump likes Burger King. Yes, we're back to the fast food. Together, they try to regain their magical skills, and perhaps potentially revive their dad. A tearjerker with plenty of heart, Onward was unsurprisingly yet another critical hit for the Disney-owned studio. You thought you'd seen the last of it, hadn't you? Not content with McDonald's and KFC, it seems Trump isn't averse to shaking things up a little and branching out with a Burger King every once in a while. After a speech in Florida during the election campaign, Trump and his team celebrated by sending his driver to the drive-in to pick up food for the gang. According to an interview shortly after, Trump opted for fast food simply because it was quick. It's pretty hard to fault him for that. Apparently, Trump's love of Burger King isn't unreciprocated, either. Shortly after the election, Burger King Russia honored the newly elected President of the United States by releasing a Trump-themed burger, which was essentially just their angriest Whopper meal, except larger. If you're a fan of Pixar's previous films, Onward might not be at the top of the pack along with movies like Toy Story or Up, but it definitely won't disappoint. Bad Boys for Life. Nearly 20 years after Bad Boys 2 hit theaters in 2003, and over 2 decades after the first film was released in 1995, the third movie in the Bad Boys saga, Bad Boys for Life, arrived in 2020. With Martin Lawrence and Will Smith reprising their roles as Detective Lieutenant Marcus Miles Burnett and Detective Lieutenant Michael Eugene, Mike, Lowry, the film finds Mike sustaining a life-threatening injury at the beginning of the film, falling into a coma for months after cartel kingpin Armando Areta's Jacob Scipio attacks Mike, who helped put Armando's father in prison. No word on whether or not he got to try that, but we're guessing they'd still make his one if he happened to be in the neighborhood. The president eats a lot of pizza, but not how you think. Yes, pizza. Who doesn't love it? It's the ultimate comfort food, the snack of choice for today's undiscerning everyman. Nobody better encapsulates this truth, of course, than self-declared man of the people Donald Trump. Many may think it's bizarre that Trump eats his pizza by scraping off and eating the toppings and leaving the dough, but it's really not that shocking in a day and age where carbs tend to be considered the enemy. When Mike recovers, he and Marcus set out to get revenge and get to Armando before he attacks anyone else. Though Bad Boys 2 received underwhelming reviews, Bad Boys for Life was a return to form for the series. Still, his consumption of fried chicken and hamburgers with buns make us wonder if that's really his reasoning, or if he's just a big fan of sauce and cheese. Also revealed in his quick-fire U.S. Magazine interview, Trump likes cherry and vanilla ice cream, Citizen Kane and hamburgers. It earned solid reviews across the board, and clearly, if Smith and Lawrence want to revisit the franchise again, audiences and critics alike will welcome them back with open arms. But you knew that last one, didn't you? Donald Trump loves meatloaf sandwiches. Coming in on the relatively normal end of Donald Trump's diet spectrum, we've got meatloaf sandwiches. Long before the presidency entered Trump's sights, he appeared on television with Martha Stewart, looking like he's actually about to bake with a cook's apron hanging over the front of his suit, and his wife Melania to aid in the creation of what he declared as one of his favorite foods. Naturally, we watched the video so you don't have to. Here's the skinny. Trump spends 3 minutes plugging The Apprentice. This makes sense since his appearance on The Who was likely a promotion for that gig, while he slaps together a meatloaf sandwich that, to his credit or Stewart's, looks just about passable. Whether it was all promotional or not, it appears that Trump really is a fan of meatloaf. Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie said Trump was pretty insistent on him eating the dish when he visited the White House. Donald Trump loves Diet Coke, so if he's not drinking beer and wine, what's he washing down all that fast food with? Well, it's not water. According to the New York Times, Trump drinks at least a dozen Diet Cokes every day. It's no secret that Americans in general have a problem with sugary beverages, but a dozen sodas a day, even the diet variety, is just a bit over the top. Dr. Dariush Mozaffarian, the dean of the Friedman School of Nutrition Science and Policy at Tufts University, told Time that just the caffeine from all that soda is enough to cause him problems like a higher heart rate, insomnia and migraines, not to mention other health issues related to diet soda like weight gain, increased risk for type 2 diabetes, and increased risk of stroke. Trump doesn't eat breakfast now, we can't actually be too critical about this one. Despite some people heralding breakfast as the queen of all meals, for others, it's simply not a priority. In an interview with Fox News via the Chicago Tribune, Trump revealed that breakfast is his least favorite meal of the day. When he does go for it, he eats bacon and eggs or cornflakes, right out of the fields of Iowa. Always be campaigning. What else is there to say? Not everyone likes breakfast. Fair enough. Of course, the president does enjoy fine dining. Trump does get out to a fancy restaurant every now and again, though. In the past, he's been spotted out dining with his family, a failed British politician, and even occasionally a Democrat or two. Often, however, these restaurant-based dinners serve a political or social purpose rather than a personal one. The Washington Examiner reported in 2016 a story related by former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, in which Trump ordered dinner for Christie at a restaurant in one of Trump's New York hotels. He brought out the chef, asked what he had ordered the week before, and ordered the exact same thing again, for himself and for Christie. It would appear that, when it comes to the choice of food and of the restaurant in which he eats it, Trump is hardly the most adventurous diner on the planet. He knows what he likes, and he sticks with it. Donald Trump loves to snack. Considering how crucial junk food is to Trump's diet, it'd probably be more of a surprise if he didn't snack on the regular. Well, true to form, the man is a big snacker, and very few things are off limits. According to a book written by Trump's former campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski, Air Force One is regularly stocked with Vienna fingers, potato chips, pretzels, and many packages of Oreos. Okay, this is why you don't skip breakfast, folks. But that's not all. Not only is Trump pretty much obsessed with snacking, but he's also a germaphobe who won't eat from any packet that has been previously opened. This presumably means that, should Trump not finish any one particular packet of snacks, they all have to be thrown away or otherwise discarded because he'll refuse to come back to them. Of course, Lewandowski's claim that Air Force One is regularly stocked with Oreos ought to raise an eyebrow or two, since Trump vowed in 2015, long before becoming president, to never eat them again, because the company announced plans to move production to Mexico. The president gets extra dessert. Yes, dessert is on the menu, too. Why wouldn't it be? But as you might expect, the president doesn't always get the same desserts as everyone else, and that goes for the rest of the meal, too. In 2017, Time magazine shadowed Trump for a few days, sticking by his side as he went about his daily routine. During this time, Trump sat down for a dinner with the magazine's reporters, which was also attended by Vice President Mike Pence. Although the menu was fixed, the differences in what Trump was actually served were stark. For example, where everyone else was served water, Trump was given a Diet Coke. When the chicken was served, he was given an extra dish of sauce. And, of course, during dessert, vanilla ice cream with chocolate cream pie, Trump was given 2 scoops of ice cream, while everyone else got 1. The only other exception was Mike Pence, who was served a fruit plate. It appears, there are more than a few perks to being the president, and one is an extra bit of sweets. President Trump definitely doesn't eat these things. When you're as, discerning as Donald Trump, you're bound to hate almost as many foods as you love. And sure enough, there are a few things we know the man really isn't keen on. First, there's sushi. The classic Japanese delicacy is, of course, something of an acquired taste, but it's hard to understate Donald Trump's dislike for it. During a 1990 trip to Japan, the future president said that he would not eat ing raw fish, and instead opted for a McDonald's hamburger, according to an excerpt from the book Lost Tycoon: The Many Lives of Donald J. Trump, via Newsweek. Then you've got vegetables. It's obvious that greens aren't a huge part of Trump's diet anyway, but the guy seems to dislike them so much that he once hand-delivered a letter to New York's mayor begging for something to be done about the food vendors who had overrun Fifth Avenue, with Trump taking particular exception to the humongous vegetable stand which operates at Fifth Avenue and 57th Street. Oh, and he leaves pickles off his burgers. But that's a little more understandable. Right. Donald Trump believes in fast food for all. Trump's obsession with fast food doesn't end with himself. In fact, he appears to be pretty dead set on making everyone else eat it, too. In January 2019, Trump experienced one of the most iconic and notorious moments of his presidency, when he served an entire banquet of fast food to a football team visiting the White House. Due to a government shutdown, the residence staff at the White House were furloughed and couldn't come in to work. This meant that Trump's team had to send out for a mountain of junk food, paid for by Trump himself, including McDonald's, Wendy's, Burger King and pizza. President Trump insisted that the meal, which was served buffet-style and which the president described as patriotic, amounted to a total of 1,000 hamburgers. In the end, closer to 300 were served. The banquet was roundly mocked in the media, but we're guessing at least a few of the football players enjoyed the fast food meal better than whatever fancy dish had been planned. In March 2019, long after the shutdown ended, Trump repeated his banquet stunt, serving a feast of Big Macs and Chick-fil-A sandwiches to a football team visiting from North Dakota.